Good morning, Muscatine and the surrounding areas. This is Brown Eyed Dr. Dan. Kind of a Waylon Jennings takeoff if you were just listening. Anyway, coming to you from Riverside Animal Hospital, the Eastern Iowa Community College local campus called Muscatine Community College, their vet tech program, and also tidbits here and there from the Animal Emergency Center of the Quad Cities. All right, we made her, and we're checking out this new little setup they got going on here at the Radio Roadhouse, Show House, Farmhouse, and Jordan's in the background. Hi, Jordan. Maybe not. Okay, we're doing like this game where you get that partition between you, so you can't see their eyes, but you know they're there somewhere. It's the trust game, right, Jordan? Okay, I'm falling backwards now. Right now, are you gonna catch me? All right. Well, the ever-present in the background. Well, so we're in the old studio. Man, I remember back, 19 years ago, I used to record everything in here. So kind of moving things around. But anyway, it is spring finally. Last visit, if you recall, we talked about the dog park in town. So I didn't really launch into some of the spring diseases. I hinted upon it in early March, but of course it was still negative, well digger's rear end sort of temperatures outside. So it was kind of difficult to get people excited, listeners excited about protection for your critters in the warmness of spring. But now with 70 degrees right around the corner and had some warm days, we are seeing the skeeters and stuff starting to pop and hatch and ticks and all that kind of stuff. So today's episode is kind of parlaying on to that discussion of this is the time. And to give you another quick recap of 2 shows ago, we tried to encourage clients to really consider, heartworm testing this time of year, getting those vaccinations for Lyme disease and lepto disease this time of year because of the timing of the vaccination. So I was talking about the science between immunizations, how long we last, and testing actually for the heartworm. So this is the time. So if you're out there as a listener, call your veterinarian and have maybe a discussion about saying, hey, is this the best time to vaccinate for Lyme and lepto and get my dog heartworm tested if you know that your reminders are like in August or June or, sometime later. So try to scoot those up. It's actually better protection, better knowledge, better health for your pet. And if you have any other questions, 263-8600. We have text, we have phone call. We have, like we said before, the drive-by smoke signals and banners from the airplanes, which I have not seen yet. But I'm still waiting for somebody to ask a question with a biplane with a banner tag behind there. That'd be so cool. So think about that next week or next show. Excuse me. So one thing I want to talk about for sure, and I know you all have heard about it, this heartworm disease, what's it about, and most of you know that it's worms in the heart. But we have had 2. And if you're looking on the YouTube, I got my 2 fingers, and in Germany you use these 2 fingers, the thumb and the pointer finger. 2 cases already diagnosed this year, and we haven't had one diagnosed and treated in a couple years. So we've been doing pretty good, but sometimes we get a little bit lax on that monthly heartworm pill or whatever prevention you're using, and therefore we see these unfortunate critters come through with heartworm disease. And it is a serious disease. And quite honestly, is an expensive disease. I think these 2 dogs, just to give you a little fundamental foundation of, why should I spend the, $8-10 a month for prevention? Well, first of all, this disease does cause heart and lung disease. But to treat these 2 dogs that are like 45 and 55 pounds, it's over $1,000. The medicine is very expensive. It takes about 3 months to treat it. There's some blood tests, x-rays, hospitalization, antibiotics, steroids. And so it is very expensive. I think the range was from like $900 to $1,500 depending on how big the dog was. And this is not even your 100-pound dog, for heaven's sake. But not only is it expensive to treat, if that doesn't scare you enough to go out and get your monthly heartworm pill, but then you have potential permanent damage of that heart, maybe permanent damage of your lungs. So we treat it, we kill the heartworms, we take care of that hitchhiker that's living inside your vena cava and your right chamber of your heart, but it leaves a lasting impression and potential damage in your critter. So we don't want to have that happen. So it is something definitely you want to do. And here in Iowa, we had finally, I don't know if that's good or bad, a winter that was really hard, really cold for a long period of time. So yes, this is one of those off years where we could probably get by without worrying about the mosquitoes spreading things for a couple months in the winter. But typically here in the mid-tier states with global warming or climate change, whatever you want to call that, the middle-tier states, we usually have a Indian summer or whatever you want to call that in the middle of winter. I guess that's more of a fall Indian summer. But in the winter, we've had Januaries that got up to 50, 60 degrees in the past years, and the mosquitoes came back out. So we typically recommend keeping them year-round in these mid-tier states, Nebraska, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, that sort of stuff. So the Heartworm Association upped that about 10, 15 years ago. It said, hey, mid-tier states, don't take a break in the winter. Keep them year-long. And also, always remember that the heartworm pills, we like the HeartGuard here at Riverside Animal Hospital. They're a nice, chewy treat. Dogs love them. They work very, very well. But they also treat for intestinal parasites once a month. So even those couple months in the winter where maybe you're not quite as worried about the mosquitoes spreading the heartworm disease, you still get intestinal parasites. They're still licking their rear end, licking their feet, finding Scooby snacks out in the yard and cow pies and farm dogs and whatever. But they can always ingest intestinal parasites. I had one dog that just came in yesterday and did not have any heartworm pills, and it was just loaded with hookworms. And they had 2 young children, and hookworms and roundworms, which is what HeartGuard controls, will take care of those. But with young children, that is contagious. They can get into young children. So hookworms and roundworms and any parasite, but those are the 2 specific ones that can cause some serious diseases in humans. So we want to keep that deworming up once a month, and your heartworm pill does double duty for that. Now, again, the last little tidbits on the heartworm disease before I go into the other 2 spring concerns. Remember, that's spread by the tick. I'm sorry, the mosquito. Yes, that is a spring through fall. And when that mosquito, it's a weird, all these parasites have just weird, how Mother Nature figured out how they do their life cycle is just crazy weird, kind of crazy cool as a doctor of veterinary medicine, but just crazy weird how they figure their system out. Well, this worm has somehow figured out in its evolution or whatever that as an adult, it lives in the heart of a host like a dog. It releases little baby worms called microfilaria, and those circulate in the blood. So you can check a dog that has adult heartworms in the heart, and you check their blood, you can see these teeny little, they look like little spaghetti things, microscopically swimming around in the blood. A mosquito comes down, takes a little blood meal, sucks up some of that blood, has those little baby microfilaria in the stomach, and then flies around. And that actually microfilaria needs to go into the stomach of that mosquito to mature to the next larval stage. So it needs that. If it doesn't, it can't mature to the next stage. So it matures in the stomach, and then the mosquito lands on another dog and bites them, and injects the next later larval stage into the muscle, the fat, the tissue, not into the blood, into the muscle, the tissue, because they don't really, always inject as they numb. They're kind of injecting to numb the skin so you don't feel it, and then they suck the blood out. So when they're injecting, they squirt that little microfilaria in the next stage into the muscle. Well, that little larval stage of that microfilaria, actually it's larva, not a microfilaria anymore. It stays in that muscle for a couple months, and then after it matures again, it goes and migrates into the capillaries and then starts moving around, matures for another 4 months kind of in the body, and then goes back up and goes into the heart. And it doesn't get into the heart and turn into a mature or an adult heartworm for about 6 months after it was injected. So that's where your heartworm pill works, is back in when it's in the muscle. It can't kill it when it's in the blood. It can't kill it when it's in the heart, but it has to kill it when it's in that skin. So when you're giving your heartworm prevention, you're actually not preventing the next month worth of mosquito is biting, you're killing anything that was squirted into the skin last month and a half or so. So that's why you want to continue on it way into like November or so. And then you pick up in March or so, so that anything injected early March you can kill back and get it. So that's why the cycle is really weird, and that we do it every month, because you only have about a month to 6 week maybe window of where we can kill that little heartworm larva that's sitting in your skin and your tissue and your fat and your muscle down in there. So so there you go, folks. That's the life cycle of the heartworm, and why we need to get it every month to kill that one little spot there. And then by the time it gets to an adult, which takes 6 months, now we are dealing with a very strong drug. It's like arsenic that you have to give 3 injections, and that injection, every vial, is pretty darn expensive. They kind of have us over a barrel, us veterinarians, on the price of this thing, and you have to stage it. You don't want to kill all the heartworms at one time, because then you'll release them into the heart and have some problems. So you kind of dose it. You wait a month to let a few of them die, come back in a month, and you hit them with 2 doses to try to get the rest of them. In the meantime, you give them antibiotics and all kinds of stuff. So it's kind of a long, about a 3 month process to take care of those. And you have to watch your dogs and try to restrict their exercise so they're not running around too hard and making their heart beat too hard and work too hard to release too many heartworms and such. So there is, in a nutshell. Jordan, did you learn something today? all the funness of worms going through a mosquito and through your muscle and through your veins and into your heart, and then back around again. So there's your heartworm disease, and that's why we do the prevention once a month all year round for the intestinal parasites too. So at this point, let's take a break and we'll talk about the other two. We'll be back. We are back. This is Dr. Dan Drehos, Dr. Dan the Animal Man, talking all things spring diseases. And hey, Jordan, can you give a quick update on, with all this techno stuff going on here, what venues can you, besides obviously listening live on 95.1 FM and 860 AM, what different ways can you watch not only Dr. Dan show, but the other shows? Awesome. Because I know I've listened to some of your shows, live, like some of the football broadcasts and stuff like that, but it's stuff to listen to myself when I'm on here to know what's going on. Now, do they watch live also? Okay. Okay. I gotcha. I say that because I have a sister in Vancouver, and I got to give her some info, and maybe she can start a little section of Peeps up in Canadian. That's, of course, they can listen to it live without having to cross the wall to get down here to get to it, But also, we do have our own riversidevet.com. So Riverside's own website, and I take some of the YouTubes and I post them on our profile there too, linked to what Jordan and the gang here put together. So I take some of my own Dr. Dan Animal Man show. So you can always visit our website. Speaking of riversidevet.com, if you, I've been very impressed, and my practice manager has been very impressed. Ken Drehos, if that name sounds coinly familiar. And we started up our own My Vet store online several months ago, and he came on. We were talking about that. It's actually been going pretty good, gangbusters. And the link to My Vet store, if you're an online shopper, it seems to be the way everybody's doing. I can't hardly watch TV without seeing a Chewy.com, and it's like you either beat them, you can't beat them, so join them. So we have our own My Vet store online for those casual shoppers, and it's got toys, and it's got non-RX stuff, and even some RX stuff on there too. So a lot of stuff that we have. So if you're an online shopper and maybe you don't come to Riverside, but hey, if you do that, you can even get your dog food shipped right to your house from our website. So check that out if you're an online shopper. Of course, we'd like to have you come down and chit chat with us and see you and get that the extra special personal touch and get some free information and come down when you talk with us during and have your exam and stuff like that too. But we're giving you multiple options at Riverside Animal Hospital, so consider looking at that in My Vet store online. Lyme disease, we've all heard of it, and I just saw an article on the news, and I think it wasn't even from Iowa. It was like the Today Show or something like that, where if your pet is diagnosed with Lyme disease, that you as the owner may want to go to your doctor and have yourself tested. And I hadn't really thought about that before, although I know plenty of my own clients that have said, yeah, I was diagnosed with Lyme disease too. Because obviously if your pet was out somewhere, even if it's on your own backyard, if your pet was out there somewhere that came across a tick that carried Lyme disease, what's the chances you were too? Let's think about that a second. Pretty good. Many of you old-time listeners here remember Drs. Ennens. Dr. Bruce and Lee Ennen were my partners and good friends still today, classmates. I remember Dr. Bruce. He actually came down with Lyme disease out in the area near Wildcat Den, where he lived, and which was a hotbed of Lyme disease in the state of Iowa. We had a lot of dogs that used to go out there and camp or live out that direction, come down with Lyme disease, and so did he. So living friends and proof that if the dogs are catching it, there's a good chance the humans are catching it in that same area. So consider that first of all. But Lyme disease has a lot of similarity with the heartworm I just talked about. And by the way, with our last 10 minutes, 263-8600 if you have a last-minute question. Does not have to be about the topic today. I always encourage any callers to ask what's on their mind or make a comment. Anyway, only the difference is the heartworm is a parasite, a worm, a nematode, technically. And the Lyme disease is a bacteria. So not quite as evolved, but has the same instinct or pattern somewhat that we described in the heartworm. So this bacteria lives in one of its cycles. Of course, it goes into the deer, and actually in the field mouse, the white field mouse, which is why either one of those here in Iowa, they can come up to your back door. They're running through town here in Muscatine, so you can't run away from the deer. And of course, we get mice inside our house all the time. I think I live in a barn, a remodeled barn, and I think I snapped about 32 mice, I think, this winter. So yeah, they come into my house big time. But what happens is the tick jumps on these two warm-blooded animals, the mouse or the deer, usually the deer. And inside the tick's stomach lives this little Borrelia burgdorferi. How about that for a $10 word? Go around the house saying Borrelia burgdorferi. That's the bacteria, Lyme disease. Well, it lives in the stomach of the tick. And when the tick latches on, it sucks blood into its mouth parts and hangs it out in its like stomach and cheek parts and whatnot, kind of like the mosquito. And when it sucks in the blood, it kind of activates the bacteria and says, "Oh, I got some blood coming. I better get myself going." Well, it takes, anywhere from 12 to 24 hours for that bacteria in the stomach to gear up, and then the tick kind of spits a little bit back out into the human, the dog, the host, and spits that bacteria into the new infected person or dog or whatever. And now we get Lyme disease. And so that's how that works. And then the Lyme disease spreads through your own body, gets into your joints, gets in, causes arthritis signs, feverish, can go spinal. It can go about everywhere, but it kind of hangs out in the joints. And it's one of those wonderful diseases that because it hangs out in the synovial fluid of your joints and some secret parts, the immune system doesn't quite get into your joints very well. So it hangs out and is resistant to your own body defenses lots of the times. And I always make an analogy. It's like, a cold sore, a herpes cold sore, even though herpes is a virus. It's like a cold sore. If you're not stressed out, you're doing good, the cold sore stays away. But if under times of stress, it flares up and bang, I get a cold sore. Same thing happens with Lyme disease. It can hang out in the body as long as you're happy-go-lucky, nothing going on, you don't have any problem. You start getting stressed out, boom, it multiplies and you start getting achy, arthritis, a fever, loss of appetite, shaking, just feeling miserable. And that's how it kind of reacts. Well, we can knock it down with antibiotics and stuff, but you kind of always have it for life. So that's the trouble with Lyme disease. It's difficult to actually cure, easy to diagnose with some of the tests we have now, and we can protect for it, which is why I'm here, Dr. Dan the Animal Man. How do we protect for Lyme disease? Well, of course, the vaccine is the one thing, one of the two things, actually, and we talked about that a couple shows ago. This is the time to vaccinate. Because it's a bacteria, the vaccine doesn't last quite a whole year. It starts wearing off at 10, 11 months. And then every year when you booster it, which is why we need to do that every year, it boom gets up the antibodies, and then it goes around and it starts wearing off. So you want the peak immunity right away. So now is the time, folks. So now the ticks are starting to come out. You want to get that booster now, so zing, your immunity goes up really high, and then it starts wearing off, about December or so, maybe January, but December, which is good because you still have it in the fall, where is the other time where all the ticks come out. So they come out in the spring and the fall when all the activity of the ticks and the Lyme disease happen. So you want your peak immunity now and in the fall. So if you're vaccinated in June and your antibodies are wearing off about now, then you're not as protected. So we want to get those done as soon as you can. Or we see some that get vaccinated in the fall. They vaccinate in November. Well, that means all the September and October ticks have had a heyday because your immunity is down. So moving those to the spring is better protection for those. Now, here's the interesting part. And when I said it, how the vaccine works is different than most of vaccines. Once you have it, people wonder, well, I've already got it, Dr. Dan. What do I need a vaccine? I've been exposed to Lyme disease. My dog is positive. And you say you're vaccinating it. Why? You've already got it. Well, you can inject more into the body. Those antibodies won't kill the Lyme disease you already have. But what happens, and this is the cool part, remember I said earlier the tick sucks blood, hangs around in its stomach for 12 to 24 hours, or even as long as 48 hours. Well, when it sucks your blood, it sucks your antibodies into the tick. That's where the antibodies work. Not in your body, but in the tick's body. So you suck the blood that has nice high-level antibodies right now because you're vaccinating right now. It sucks your dog's blood, and all those antibodies you just vaccinated for are in that tick stomach, killing that Borrelia bacteria, the Lyme disease bacteria, into the stomach. So then when it spits it into you, you've killed all the bacteria. That's pretty cool. So you're killing the bacteria before it even injects it into you. So that's how the vaccine works. It doesn't really take care of what's in your body because it hides out. but it prevents more ticks from just squirting more bacteria into you and making you have more of a load and you have more sickness and stuff like that. So you want to vaccinate for that. And the vaccines are 75, 85% effective, not quite 100% because it's such a tough bacteria, but they work pretty good. 85% is way better than doing nothing, but it's not quite as good as doing the vaccine and a good tick control. So we recommend both. Make sure you're on some good flea and tick control. We like the Frontline, we like the NexGard, and there's a lot of products out there that work very, very well. But the combination of those two are a really solid defense against the Borrelia burgdorferi, the Lyme disease, which we all know can be pretty tough. So anyway, there's the cool life cycle of that. And the last one, which we just have 1 minute left, about 2 minutes left, maybe. And I want to just really touch on the lepto. Again, that's another springtime disease we talk about vaccinating this time of year. Lepto is spread through urine in dogs and raccoons. And so wherever dogs congregate and likes to live in water, wet ground. So guess what we have happening right now, folks? We got a lot of water. We got a lot of flooding. We got backwaters. It's going to be a good year for lepto. And I mean that in a bad way. A bad year for lepto. And also, guess what it's a bad year for? Mosquitoes. They like the water too. So we live here along the Mississippi. We have little creeks going into there. We have ponds. We're in a hotbed of all the diseases I just talked about. Ticks like the humidity down here, and we're in a bad spot. So they live in the water. They like ponds, and especially where dogs congregate. We talked about the dog park. That's definitely a place I would be vaccinated for lepto. Any parks that dogs like to go to where they tend to pee in the same spot and then they sniff it and they pick it up. Even traveling dogs, maybe they stay inside, but they go on road trips and they stop at the rest stops. That's a high spot of picking up lepto. So consider lepto. We see several cases up in the Quad Cities. They see quite a bit. And that is definitely a vaccine that we're starting to do more of because we're seeing more of. And it can cause kidney disease, cause fever, cause cystitis, can be fatal renal disease. And actually is very contagious to humans. So lepto, when your dog urinates and we try to figure out what's going on, we find out has lepto, we have to worry about the owners. We have to worry about us. We have to worry about the kennel kids. So that is a disease you have to watch out for the urine on. So there you go. Everything you want to know about spring diseases on the April 2nd, just short of the April Fool's Day. And hope you all take that in mind. Call your veterinarian. Call Riverside Animal Hospital right now and get your fine-tuned health preventive plan from Dr. Dan, the brown-eyed man. We'll talk to you later. This is Dr. Dan, the Animal Man.